of the border. In this corner, live free or die New Hampshire.
We do like the self-determination of our state here.
And in this corner, the budget-busting bureaucracy of Massachusetts.
It should be full-time and it should be everywhere at all times.
Plus, Mike Barnacle, beware.
47% of all New Hampshire residents require 2 hours to watch 60 Minutes.
New Hampshire fires back at Barnacle in the Battle of the Border, next on Chronicle.
Tonight, Peter Mehegan, Mary Richardson, with Andrea Hall and Mike Barnacle. Chronicle, the New England news magazine.
What is a boundary? An arbitrary line drawn through space? A signpost at the side of the road? Well, when that boundary separates the states of New Hampshire and Massachusetts, the differences can be significant. It's been said that Massachusetts and New Hampshire share little but the border that separates them. One is overwhelmingly Democratic, the other rock-ribbed Republican. One boasts of its progressive social services, the other prides itself on its flinty frugality. And while the state of New Hampshire recently upheld an 18th century law making adultery a crime, its neighbor to the south just passed a groundbreaking gay rights bill. The small towns of Hollis, New Hampshire and Pepperell, Massachusetts lie side by side with a border down the middle. But what really separates these two places? Does life change all that much when the blacktop changes color?
Hard work, I imagine.
Rick Hardy runs Brookdale Farm across the border in Hollis.
We do like the self-determination of our state here, and that we like to be able to do our own thing in our own towns and don't like a federal agency or a state agency hanging over our heads saying this is the way we have to do it.
And down south?
Well, I get the feeling that there's much more bureaucracy there than there is in this state.
That, again, is the Massachusetts sort of philosophy of government, which is that it should be full-time and it should be everywhere at all times, and that's not...
Augusta Hornblower represents Pepperell in the Massachusetts legislature, a full-time position paying $30,000 a year. New Hampshire representatives, by contrast, get a more modest sum.
Our salary is $100 a year.
Elliott Ware represented Hollis for 8 years in New Hampshire's citizen legislature, a body made up largely of homemakers, business people, and retirees.
They do it out of pride of what goes on in the state of New Hampshire.
And the cost of campaigning for these state reps?
Last time was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000.
That's what you spent.
Right, that's probably what everybody in New Hampshire spent.
I think my total campaign expenditures for the entire 8 years, they may have been over 50, but they weren't over $100.
It's a different kind of entity here. It's more costly. It costs more to be a state representative in Massachusetts.
What's clearly not the same at all on either side of the state border is the tax structure. New Hampshire's lack of a sales tax has taken its toll on Pepperell businesses. Walter Razzaboni and his family operate Pepperell's one remaining supermarket.
Being a border town has its ups and downs, no question about it. There's been several other stores. As a matter of fact, I think the number is 13 that have left since we've came. But the state of New Hampshire seems to be out for the state of New Hampshire, and that's all.
Even old-time Pepperellites find their loyalties tested.
I've known these fellows here since they were a kid. I knew their father.
Where do you do your shopping?
Are they listening? New Hampshire.
Some go to New Hampshire to shop. Many never leave. In addition to no sales tax, the Granite State has no income tax. No surprise, then, that southern New Hampshire is one of the fastest-growing areas in the country. Former Massachusetts Governor Endicott Chubb Peabody is perhaps the most conspicuous transplant in Hollis.
I said to myself, let's try something a little bit new.
But the former governor has found the political waters a bit chilly.
They have some built-up feelings, you know, that somehow we've got to keep Massachusetts out of here and so forth. Well, everybody knows who Chubb Peabody is when he runs for office. Sometimes that's helpful because you do need to be known. Other times they say, hey, we don't need a a Democrat, and a Democrat who was a Massachusetts governor to boot.
The political atmosphere in the southern tier of New Hampshire has changed over the last 10 years or so from the influx from not only Massachusetts, but New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and for all I know, Georgia and Virginia.
People from Massachusetts move to New Hampshire, and then they demand the services that they've had in Massachusetts. And New Hampshire people complain about that all the time.
But all is not tax-free nirvana in New Hampshire. Newcomers might be shocked by their property taxes, the highest in the nation. The taxes on this house in Pepperell are $2,580, while a house of equal valuation in Hollis is taxed $4,167. Like all New Hampshire communities, Hollis has to rely on local property taxes to support its services. For example, state funds account for only 7% of the annual Hollis school budget. This compares to the 66% Pepperell receives from Beacon Hill for its schools.
And I understand that requires taxes, and I begrudgingly pay my taxes when I have to.
But what's this? Things are getting curiouser and curiouser. Beacon Hill is tightening its belt, slashing local aid, while up in Concord they're working on their own little deficit. Could it be these two antagonists are catching each other's germs?
I think that you're going to see some give and take there. I think you're going to see New Hampshire making some adjustments to adapt to the Massachusetts way, and Massachusetts perhaps making some adjustments to adapt to the New Hampshire way.
And I think that the rivalry is, which has been created between New Hampshire and Massachusetts, is artificial, because they both need each other. Massachusetts recreates here in New Hampshire. New Hampshire goes down and sees the Celtics and the Red Sox, uses the hospitals, buys the mega bucks. Many people get their jobs there. So it's a great marriage, and I think we'd all be better off to recognize that.
Nevertheless, there seem to be some pretty strong feelings up in New Hampshire about
that's
Massachusetts.
Right. You have no difficulty when you stop somebody in New Hampshire and say, what do you think of Massachusetts? You get an immediate reaction. You say that to somebody in Pepperell, they don't feel quite as strongly. They're much more complimentary. There are very few compliments about Massachusetts north of the border.
All right. And we will be right back. For years, New Hampshire businesses have been luring Massachusetts consumers across the state line to buy cheaper alcohol and cigarettes and to avoid the mass sales tax on big-ticket items ranging from furniture and computers to jewelry and automobiles.
But now, Mary, the stakes are about to get even higher. New Hampshire business leaders are organizing and financing a media campaign to entice Massachusetts businesses to pack up and move north. It's a direct assault on the tax base of Massachusetts at a time when government dollars here are already shrinking. As Andrea Hall reports, the interstate rivalry is about to go up a notch.
It wasn't a top-secret military unit, but this was a strategy session. Last month, the Granite Foundation, a group of New Hampshire business executives, raised $150,000 at a benefit dinner. One of the purposes?
We will be launching a campaign, an advertising campaign, print and broadcast media, to point out and to amplify the many positive aspects of locating a business here in New Hampshire and living in our state. And we're eager to do that, and we hope to launch that campaign within the next 3 weeks.
Launch it, among other places, right into the heart of Boston, on TV, radio, and in newspapers. It's the latest sortie in a cross-border battle for businesses.
So we view this as healthy competition, not only between Massachusetts, but between every state in the country. And everybody benefits when you have healthy competition.
New Hampshire is out to capture new businesses from all over, but especially from Massachusetts. Here is some of the ammunition. In a study done over the last 2 years, 82% of New Hampshire business leaders said their state was above average in its business climate. But just 16% of Massachusetts business leaders said their state was. Why? Mark Bodie says he knows the reasons.
We have a very cooperative state government. Our regulatory environment is very favorable to businesses who want to locate here. We're very eager and work very cooperative with them in attempting to overcome the challenges associated with locating businesses here. And at the same time, we have a very favorable tax climate.
I don't think
the nitty-gritty question of taxes between us and New Hampshire is anything like the one-way street that I'm sure they feel that it is.
Alden Rain says that in Massachusetts, property taxes have gone up 25% in the last 5 years.
That same period of time, property taxes in New Hampshire have gone up 80%. Our property taxes are the 12th highest in the country, and our position is going down. New Hampshire's property taxes are the 3rd highest in the country. They're the highest in New England.
Stephen Rice is New Hampshire's Commissioner of Economic Development.
You say that you have a better tax situation here than in Massachusetts, and yet the property taxes here in New Hampshire are among the highest in the country.
If you add up all the taxes that people pay in New Hampshire has the lowest tax burden per individual of all 50 states. That has to be remembered.
How do businesses look at the pros and cons of each state? This company, Cabletron, started in Ashland, Massachusetts. 4 years ago, it moved to Rochester, New Hampshire. Craig Benson is the president.
So to me, it is the best decision that the company made, and I think it's really attributed to our success.
In Ashland, Cabletron was growing rapidly and needed space to expand. Benson says he called the Massachusetts Office of Economic Affairs.
We didn't get any return phone calls for a while. It took them 3 weeks to return the phone call. Versus New Hampshire, where the economic development person I spoke to was about 2.5 hours from where we were located, and 2.5 hours later he was in my office with all the other demographics, space availability that I had mentioned. So it was quite a difference.
Cabletron decided to make the move.
We've gotten a great amount of available space, which is what we need at a good rate. The city, this is a city-owned parcel of land we're on. The city sold us this parcel so that we could build our own building, and that took them all of 2 weeks to do. So there's no red tape here.
In the 4 years since, Cabletron has grown from 30 employees to more than 800.
We employ everything from engineering types to marketing types to accounting to factory employees, test technicians mostly. Every one of them wants to see the company succeed and win. Everybody wants to be part of it. In Massachusetts, we didn't feel the same attitude. And it was almost like I can walk down the street and get another job tomorrow, so why do I have to do what you guys want me to do? Versus here, everybody's really pitching in.
Is Cabletron the exception or the rule? According to the New Hampshire Office of Economic Development, Massachusetts companies continually move across the border.
They are coming to the state of New Hampshire, Andrea, and they always have. Massachusetts has always been the single largest source of new business growth in New Hampshire.
Massachusetts says that's no problem.
In terms of how much movement really goes on back and forth between us and New Hampshire, and how much of our time we spend thinking about movement back and forth between us and New Hampshire, I think that sense of competition is a lot less than it's cracked up to be.
Statistics show a big difference between the two states in new jobs and new companies. New Hampshire runs a distant third in New England on both counts. Massachusetts also provides a tremendous governmental support system for businesses.
This state has written the book on economic development as a public objective and as a public policy. We help more businesses get financing. We have helped more businesses train their workers. We help more businesses locate in industrial parks for which we build access roads and sewer pipes and all the rest of it, pound for pound in any state in the country.
New England as a region has been a mecca for businesses the last decade. The defense industry and high tech fueled the boom. But recently, the bloom has come off the rose. Several major Massachusetts corporations have announced layoffs, and the chill is spreading to New Hampshire. There's no doubt the region's economy is slowing down. Both Massachusetts and New Hampshire will face tougher times in the future than they have in the recent past. Is the cooling economy going to heat up the business border war?
I'm not going to spend any of my time figuring out how to get, one company out of New Hampshire. We're going to spend our time here figuring out how to position the New England economy to compete in Europe in 1992.
But the business battle will undoubtedly outlast any economic cycle.
All we are looking to do is stimulate a higher level of discussion about the appropriateness of businesses, certain types of businesses, to consider New Hampshire as a place in which to locate.
You know, Peter, we talk about the rivalry between New Hampshire and Massachusetts. The truth is both states are concerned about business recruiters from other parts of the country, like the South. Alabama and Texas, for example, have had recruiters up here trying to get our businesses down there. So the Northeast may have more to worry about from the South and cheap labor pool, et cetera, they have to offer.
Repeat of an old story. That's what happened to the mills and the textiles, both states. We'll be right back after this.
Coming up next, Mike Barnacle surveys the Granite State.
62% favor making the start of hunting season a national holiday.
And New Hampshire answers back. Whenever Mike Barnacle delivers one of his infamous commentaries, we get truckloads of angry mail from across the border. Why? See for yourself.
According to one of my recent surveys, 47% of all New Hampshire residents require 2 hours to watch 60 Minutes. 38% live in towns so small that they have single-digit zip codes. 62% favor making the start of hunting season a national holiday. Another 57% think that dressing up for dinner means wearing a day-glow orange cap.
So, tonight, we thought it only fair to offer equal time to the Granite State. Joining us now is New Hampshire broadcaster Fritz Weatherby. Fritz?
2 hours. 2 hours to watch 60 Minutes. Good grief, I remember when he first used that line, and I'm not kidding you. It's got to be 15, 16, 17 years ago. Give me a break, Mike. The motorcycle races, the snowmobiles, the snowmobilers, the loud mufflers, the bad teeth. That's New Hampshire, right? Not that it surprises us New Hampshire natives very much. We know what this is. It's a thing that used to be called the Boston attitude. This was the attitude the summer people used to have. Now, the summer people always came from Boston. They had summer homes in places like Wolfboro and Conway and Joffrey Center, and they talked funny, sort of hot potato in the mouth. They amused us. Most of them couldn't drive a nail or change a tire. They thought us quaint. We thought them silly. But we never blamed them for their superiority complex. I mean, my heavens, what could you expect? They came from a place that called itself the hub of the universe. Not the hub of New England, mind you, not even the hub of the Northeast, but the hub of the universe and the Athens of the West, where the lodgers speak to the Cabot and the Cabot speak only to God. Geez, with all the brainwashing that Boston gives its kids, no wonder even the brighter ones, like Mike Barnacle, end up buying it. Now, Mike doesn't talk funny. At least he doesn't talk funny like the summer people used to, but he amuses us in the same way, and he doesn't fool us. Yeah, he goes around without a necktie, and he carries that H.L. Mencken cigar, and he does stories about cab drivers from Chelsea and bartenders from Southie, but I'm here to tell you that Mike Barnacle is about as working class as those CEOs and computer consultants we see at the Marlow, New Hampshire town dump, leaning on their Volvos, wearing their LL Bean boots and saying, yeah, good try, we say, but you ain't fooling us none. You couldn't beat the Boston attitude out of those people with a stick. You couldn't beat the Boston attitude out of Mike Barnacle with a stick either. But we forgive him. After all, he spent some money in New Hampshire, too.
The thoughts of New Hampshire broadcaster Fritz Weatherby. Chronicle will be back after tonight's lottery number and these messages. Are really quite different, Mary. You think of Hugh Gallen being elected. He couldn't have been elected, I don't think, without all those Massachusetts Democrats, ex-Democrats who moved into southern New Hampshire. You go north of Franconia Notch up to places like Coos County and Pittsburgh and the Connecticut Lakes. That's a totally different area. That's still the rock-ribbed Republican, you know, we talked about the flinty attitude. So the state is very different, I think, north of the Notch, and not all that much different in many respects south of Concord.
Think of places like Berlin and Dixville Notch. I mean, they're very, very different from what we call New Hampshire,
Indeed.
just up north.
That is our program for tonight. Tomorrow night, join us for the first of 2 nights along the main streets and back roads of France. We begin with a visit to the City of Light, Paris.
You have 100 towns in the same city. You have 100 cities in the same city. You change of street and you discover the world.
We'll discover Paris in the company of people who love her. Photographer Winnie Denka who's made the Eiffel Tower her obsession. Renaud Lecuyer, who wants to preserve the charm of Montmartre for everyone. Mississippi-born designer Patrick Kelly, who's riding atop the French fashion world.
And we'll look at the challenges facing Parisians trying to blend the new and the old in a city 2,000 years old. The controversial battle over immigration's effect on France. And a man who wants to keep France for the French. Plus, we'll explore the love-hate relationship between France and America. That's all coming up tomorrow night along the main streets and back roads of France. Hope you'll join us then. I'm Mary Richardson.
I'm Peter Mehegan. Good night.
Good night.
Good evening, I'm Chet Curtis. Why is there such a bitter divide in Boston?